Hello and welcome again. Thank you so much for being around. It's good to know you're there. Thank you for your previous work time. Thank you for liking, for sharing, for your comments. Please keep them coming. They are reason why we are encouraged to do more. I want to sincerely apologize. It's been a while since we had our last session. We already started with the copper. We dealt with the history of it, the sources, which include nuts and grains, and of course legumes, wheat, and also green leafy vegetables to be good sources of dietary copper. We also consider the metabolism, the absorption, and also the functions of dietary copper. Today we'll be drawing the curtain on dietary copper as we consider deficiency symptoms. Deficiency refers to when a situation where a particular nutrient is not enough, doesn't meet requirements, so we'll refer to it as deficiency. So the symptoms we talk about will refer to the signs that you notice, what you observable signs or proofs that this thing is not enough. But mind you, deficiency of copper as a dietary mineral is not common, but whenever it occurs, it's usually because of poor diet, and in other cases it can be as a result of malabsorption, where absorption is not properly done or carried out. Now you already know that absorption from the previous videos. Please, you want to check previous videos to know. So from previous videos, absorption usually takes place in the small intestine, usually around the jejunum and the ileum. So when it's not properly done in the human or animal, let's say chicken or whichever, you see visible signs of dietary deficiency of dietary copper. And also when there are cases of excess zinc intake. Now, what's the relationship between zinc and copper? They are what they call antagonistic minerals. That is, elements that you don't have to have one. If you're going to have this much, the other will have to be low. If you're going to have this a higher quantity, the other will be lower. So it's just like an inverse relationship, like you have with copper and like calcium and potassium in the body. So we'll go straight into the dietary symptoms. The deficiency symptoms, they are categorized into that which has to do with the blood or with the nervous system, in which case the brain and the spinal cord and the others. That which has to do with the bones of the body and the connective tissues. That which has to do with the skin and the hair. And that which has to do with the immune system and infants and children. Straight. Quickly, that which has to do with the blood. First of all, when there is deficiency in copper, it's noticeable by anemia. What's anemia? Anemia is a situation where there's a observable shortage in red blood cell. So blood supply is low. So you see the skin is pale and other features like the eye, open the eye is actually pale. The tongue, you touch the fingernails, it's not even, you don't see right, it's almost like white, just pale, we call it pale. So signs of anemia, not having enough blood. Then also there's low white blood cell count. White blood cells, this time that helps in defending the body. Red blood cells responsible for the red color of the blood, but this time white blood cells, and also red blood cell transporting of oxygen, you know the functions. When there's deficiency of copper, it affects also white blood cells. And once white blood cells are affected, you know it leads to the animal or human falling down to infections often. So we'll get to that when we get to immune system, because this is actually related to this. So white blood cells actually help in defending the body. So when it's affected, the quantity, the count is low because of deficiency of copper. You see that the animal or person is easily susceptible to diseases. Also, you look at fatigue. Of course, when there's anemia, shortage of blood supply, and also oxygen the animal will be weak, fatigue. They are all interwoven, interrelated. Having settled this, deficiency of copper. Again, welcome to the nervous system. Things that have to do with the brain and the spinal cord. You see numbness. Numbness means not able to feel senses, cannot sense things. This place is numb. For example, anywhere that's numb, you can't feel nervous impulses. So it's numb and tingling in the hands and feet. You know them by deficiency. Another sign of deficiency of copper is difficulty in walking when it affects the nerves. When the nerves are weakened, it's not the animal or human is not able to walk properly because the nerves are deficient in the supply of dietary copper. Again, poor coordination. Of course, it has to do with walking too. It has to affect what is called gait. The pattern in which an animal walks or a person, your footstep, it's going to affect the coordination. That is also because of deficiency of copper. Another thing is the peripheral neuropathy, where the animal nervous system is actually not functioning properly. So there is an apathy, it's not sense, it's not doing that which ought to be done, it's not delivering upon what it ought to be doing. So then the third part is bones and connective tissues. Bones are the skeletal structure of the animal, and then bones are connected by connective tissues. You have cartilages and tendons. Cartilages between ends, around the ends of the bones. The cartilages kind of rubbery elastic form. They eventually, as the animal grows, they begin to form bones from cartilages. Now, when there is a deficiency in copper, it affects what? The bone and connective tissues. The bones become brittle. Brittle means that the bones easily break. Now, not like it just stands and start breaking a person into, if it's a person or animal, into a very vigorous activity, it becomes broken leg, broken limbs, and the others. So it's one of it. And then weak joints, of course, still related to broken bones because the joints, the bones are connected, every joints. So when the bones are weakened, brittleness happen, breaking, and then the joints also affected because of the connective tissues like the cartilages. It also affects poor wound healing. Copper is essential. If you look at all the elements of wound curing of wound, copper plays an essential role. So when copper is deficient, it affects the healing of wounds. Another category is the skin and the hair. One, you see loss of skin pigmentation. We talked about pigmentation means coloring. So copper is actually good or actually useful in the manufacture of the protein called melanin. Melanin is actually one of the useful ingredients that gives the skin its color, feathers color, hairs color, the colors of the skin, the hair, the feathers. So when there's shortage or deficiency in copper, it affects what? Pigmentation, that is coloration of the skin, the hair, and the feathers. Also premature or graying of the hair, still related. Once the body is not able to produce melanin, that protein, is going to cause premature graying of the hair. If it's for human, you start seeing the hair graying. And sometimes these things are genetic. Some people begin to gray faster than others. Then you see pale skin, has to do with this and this and this. Pale skin because of deficiency, inability or deficiency, or where the body is not able to produce enough melanin. The skin is not, the integrity of the skin is compromised. You now begin to see the skin being pale, like someone that is sickly or having anemia. Then hair thinning. The breadth of the hair begins to thin. Still has to do with melanin. I think I have to write it here. Melanin, the protein column, melanin, and this other protein, melanin. Sorry, N-I-N, melanin. Sorry, melanin. So the next is immune system functions. Where there is a deficiency in copper, it weakens the immune system. It's related with this, like I talked about, white blood cells, which help in fighting the body and curing diseases, preventing diseases. So once this is affected, white blood cells count is affected. It drops. The body or the animal becomes susceptible to pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing organisms like bacteria, viruses, and the others. Then, if copper is deficient, it also causes infant and children problems, which has to do with failure to grow well, because certain growth hormones have copper as a cofactor or as an enzyme necessary, helps as a cofactor for enzymes necessary for growth. And when growth is affected, more often than not, development is also affected. Development of what? Let's look at secondary sexual characteristics, hair, in pubic parts and others, and also the breast for girls and the others. So this is how it affects animals. Now, to this end, we would like to draw the curtain on copper. But a quick recap. Previously, we looked at this, the sources of copper, the history of copper, the sources of copper, and then the absorption which happens usually in the small intestine, the metabolism or transportation of it, and then the functions which are related to the deficiency symptoms. In other case, where there's a deficiency symptom, it's actually because the function is actually impaired. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you liked, if you enjoyed the video, you gained value, please put a thumbs up. We want you to pick your comment also if you have a question, and share the video. Thank you so much. Let's meet again. Bye for now.